Hi, I'm Rob Hughes, Outlaw Pro and Carp Team England manager, and I'm here today down at the beautiful Shearwater Lake down in Wiltshire. As you can see, it's a lovely day. Fish aren't quite playing ball yet, but we're going to see what we can do about that a little bit later on. The main reason I'm here is to talk to you about a fantastic new bait that's coming out from Outlaw Pro called the Soluble. Of course, I've got some here. I'll show you them a little bit later, but before we go there, I just want to talk a little bit about the history of solubles. Now, it goes back a very long way, 1995, 96 in fact, which is when the first ever soluble was brought to market. That was done by a guy called Clive Dietrich, who you'll have heard of Richworth Baits. He was one of the old partners of Richworth, and he came up with an idea for crushing a load of particles down and making it into a soluble boilie. It was called a ball pellet. And myself and Simon Crowe used them right at the very, very beginning, and we won the World Carp Cup in 1996 using them. So you can see my history goes back with them a very, very long way indeed. Now, wind forwards a little bit, and what's happened in recent years is we've got more and more into competition carp fishing. Over on the continent, Romania in particular, they fish muddy bottomed lakes, and they realised that a soluble bait worked a lot better for attraction than a solid boilie. So they started developing a soluble bait, and they made it slightly different to the ones that we used back here in England. Now, I've seen these baits used for quite a few years now on the continent, especially in competition, and they are just incredibly effective. Romania won the World Championships back in, I think it was, let's have a look, 2013, 2014. And this was when they first started coming to the attention of the rest of us. They are amazingly effective. They are exactly what it sounds like, a soluble boilie. A boilie that looks like a boilie, it behaves like a boilie, it's made in exactly the same way as a boilie, apart from the fact it's not boiled. It's got a slightly different binding ingredient in it, which means that when it goes into water, the water penetrates into it and it starts to break down. And that's where the attraction comes out an awful lot quicker than a boilie itself. We won the World Championships last year, 2022, out in Hungary using soluble boilies. If we wind back to the Ladies World Championships, that took place at Linear Fisheries. Ukraine won that, and guess what? Yes, they were using soluble boilies. We were second, we were using solubles. Latvia were third, they were using solubles. I think the only other team that were using solubles there were the Hungarian team, and they caught the biggest common in Brasenose too. So it's a really interesting tactic, one, for competition fishing, but two, where fish haven't seen it before, it just works incredibly well. And that's why we're really proud to say that the Soluble is now going to be available through Outlaw Pro in the UK. I think it's about time that I started to show you some as well. So they come in 18 and 22 mils, and as you can see, they look like a boilie. They're exactly the same ingredients as our boilies. These are Krilla, very, very popular, big fish catcher, catches a lot of fish as well as big fish as well. So these are the Krilla base, and then they've got one or two little extra secret ingredients that clearly we're not going to tell you about that allow them to do what they can do. Now, we also do a sweet corn version. The sweet corn version is yellow. Every fish alive loves sweet corn. There is nothing that swims that won't eat it. So of course, we've got the two different versions for you. Like I say, 18 and 20 mil, perfectly round. And one of the key things with these is they are really, really usable. They'll go out with a throwing stick as far as you can possibly throw them. So the 22s in particular, you know, we use these at 130, 140, even 150 meters. And yes, that is a very long way with a throwing stick. When you see them going out with a stick, they fly incredibly straight. They don't split, which means that you can put them where you want them and where you need them. They're also a brilliant bait for the catapult too. So if you want to get a nice tight group of bait, then you can get them out with a catapult in the same way that you can get boilies. But the attraction with these is exactly that, the attraction. When they break down, which they do, they put a lot more flavour into the water. Now, one of the key things with them is that breakdown time. Obviously, cold day like today, the water's a lot colder, it's going to take a bit longer to break down. But in warm water, these will break down up to 4 hours. And the best way to fish them is just keep topping your swim up. You know, when you buy them, you buy a kilo, you're going to use a kilo. It's not a case of stick a few in and that's it. You're going to be topping your swim up all the time. But unlike a boilie, after 4 maybe 5 hours, these are more or less gone. The small fish will come in, they'll pick on the powder that's down there, they'll clear your peg. So you can never really overbait with soluble boilies, and that's a huge attraction. We all know as anglers that you can't take it out once you put it in. But with these, actually, once you put it in, it does disappear. Something will eat it, and something will eat it pretty quickly as well. So topping it up little and often, every hour or two, just trickling a bit more over the top, it means you've got a constant stream of both food and smell in the water. Over the top of it, you know, if you want to and you're just fishing quick hit, short session fishing, you're recasting regularly, you can pop one of these on the hair if you want to, but of course, the best thing to do is use the matching boilie. Put this out, get the fish attracted in there, and then you can use whatever you want on the hook, fishing over the top of it, and it will draw the fish in. Perfect way of fishing going forwards. Now, solubles are made to be used straight out of the bucket. That's what they come in, not bags, buckets. And remember, you need to look after them as well. So do not, under any circumstances, leave the lid off when it's raining, because obviously if they get wet, they'll start to go a little bit squidgy. The other thing to do is keep them out of bright sunlight as well. You want them so they're nice and hard. You don't want them so they're all gooey. Now, although you can use them straight out the bucket, you can customize them as well if you want to put your own little edge on them. So one way of doing that is, firstly, if you want them to break down quicker, you can just poke them with a baiting needle. Just breaks the skin on the outside a little bit, and that will cause them to break down a little bit faster. So if it's a quick hit that you're after, that's the way to do it. Alternatively, if you want to slow the breakdown down, then just give them a light coating of oil, hemp oil, krill oil, whatever you like. You know, our kriller oil is absolutely fantastic for it as well, so you can do that with them. Potentially you can glug them as well if you want. But remember, anything that you put on the outside of this is going to affect the speed that the water goes into it. One of my particular favourites is just putting a pot of a really nice water-soluble attractor and just giving them a quick lick in it. They'll start to suck it in. Don't put a lot, just a little bit, and then get them out in the pond as well. And that gives an extra flavour boost. Now, the other one, and I'm giving away a few edges now, is you don't need to do that with all of them. Just do it with one or two. And if that's the glug that you're putting in a stick that you're casting out, attaching to your hook link, you know, that sort of thing, I'm sure you get the gist of it, then you can do that as well. Some little pockets of that smell, and then a stick mix over the top. Absolutely brilliant. Red, really nice attractor underwater as well. So when this breaks down, you get these little measly dots all over the bottom of the lake, just like little red measles. Oh, indication there, go on then. So little red dots all over the bottom of the lake, and then a match the hatch style bait over the top of that. You know, the fish have got used to eating these. They see another one and think, bingo, that's a bit of me. So that is basically it. That's the soluble boilie. They're available from Outlaw Pro from March. And as that water gets warmer, believe you me, these are going to catch a massive amount of carp. Well, other than the solitary bream off the deck, it's been a bit of a struggle downstairs on the bottom. So the sun is now starting to come out. It's looking like it's a bit brighter. And I'm convinced that those carp are going to be moving up in the water. So it's going to be a change of tactics off the deck onto the zigs. 2 zigs are going to be going out. One's going to go at 6 foot, another at 8 foot, sort of around about halfway, a little bit higher. I don't think they're going to be just below the surface at the moment, primarily because it has been so cold over the last few days. And equally, I don't think they're going to be on the deck. So I'm going to start around about half depth, a little bit of baiting over the top of them, see if that can encourage a bite or two. Here, I think one of the problems is that there's always bites to be had. You know, high stock venues like this, there's always a chance of getting a bite, so you've just got to work at it until you get one. And if you're not having them on the deck, it's because they're not down there, they're not feeding. So it's going to come up in the water, a little bit of bait over the top of it, keep the noise going in with the throwing stick, and that might produce a fish. Well, we've got one, a winter carp. Look at that, he's a lively little blighter, this one as well. And it came fishing noise tactics, that is pinging bait over the top. And remember, the last thing I want to do when I'm creating a bit of noise out there is feed them off, which is why the solubles are so good for this sort of thing. Bit of noise, bit of disturbance, carp come and have a look, one thing to eat, and that, my friend, was my hook bait. Well, another one yet again, and once again it's the sound, I think, that's done it. Just keeping that bait going in over the top, making a little bit of noise, and not feeding him too much. Oh, and I think he's ready to go back in, and I'm ready to catch another one as well.